Okay, today we're going to be looking at the difference between theme and central idea. So you need to make sure that you have your handout in front of you and a writing utensil. When I take notes on the screen, you're going to take it on your handout as well. So let's start with theme. Theme is the big idea. Okay. So it's going to be the moral or lesson that we learn from the story. Okay? It's also going to be able to be applied to our regular lives. It's not going to have specific names or details from the story. So in other words, it's really broad. Then when we come over here to central idea, our central idea is the main idea. It's going to have specific plot events and character names. And it only applies to the text. That's how these two ideas are different, but what they share in common is that they are what the text is about. Make sure that you have these notes recorded in your handout. In order to be successful today, you need to cite at least 3 pieces of relevant evidence that fully develop the film's central idea. You need to write a clear and accurate central idea statement and a clear and accurate thematic statement for the film that show your understanding of the difference between the two terms. So again, if we go back up here, I want to make sure that your theme statement is broad and could apply to our lives, whereas your central idea statement is going to be very specific to the text itself. They're both going to deal with what the text is about. All right, let's use Kite Runner as an example of how we're going to use this graphic organizer today. You're going to see 3 textual evidence boxes. That's where you're going to cite your evidence from the story or from the film that we watch. Then you see a box right here where you will write the central idea statement and a final box where you write your theme statement. These two should have different responses. The other day when we read The Kite Runner, there was a quote that said, "There was a very real chance that I was going to render Soraya a widow at the age of 36. That's our first piece of text. There was a very real chance that I was going to render Soraya a widow at the age of 36. Our next piece of evidence, mostly I remember this. His brass knuckles flashing in the afternoon light, how cold they felt with the first few blows, and how quickly they warmed with my blood. So your second piece of textual evidence, I remember this. His brass knuckles flashing in the afternoon light, how cold they felt with the first few blows, and how quickly they warmed with my blood. And then your last piece of textual evidence from the kite runner that we're going to use is, there's a way to be good again. Now that we have all three pieces of our text, we're going to stop and say, what connects these together? How do all three of these pieces of text come to give us the central or main idea of the story? What is it mostly about? So I'm going to write the central idea statement here based off of my three pieces of text. After many years, Amir finally finds redemption and sacrifices himself in order to save Sohrab's life. So this statement is what the story is mostly about. It has specific names, like Amir and Sohrab, and specific details, sacrificing in order to save his life. It's very specific to the text and tells us what it's mostly about. Now, I'm going to translate this into a theme statement. The theme statement is going to be broad and be able to apply to your life and to my life. So I'm going to write, redemption, requires self-sacrifice. So I asked myself, if you remember last 9 weeks when we talked about theme, we would take a big idea like redemption, and then we would figure out what is the story saying about it, right? So what this story is mostly about is that redemption requires self-sacrifice. You have to self-sacrifice yourself in order to be redeemed or forgiven, okay? This, as you can see, is a really broad statement that could apply to you or me and the story. It's the lesson that we learn. Whereas your central idea is going to have specific details from the text. They both, however, are about what the text is mostly about. All right, you're on to your final step. You're going to watch the next section of the video that's going to be about the Hazara and Pashtun conflict in Afghanistan. As you watch, you're going to record 3 pieces of evidence from the film. You're going to take those evidence and ask, what do they mostly tell you? So what's the central idea or what the film is mostly about? And then you're going to take that central idea and come up with a theme. What's the moral or lesson you and I can learn about the conflict in Afghanistan? This is your exit ticket for today. You'll also answer some questions along the way to make sure you're understanding what the video is about.